Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today we are tackling something that might not sound super exciting at first, but trust me, it's fascinating once you get into it.
Oh, I agree completely.
Succession planning. I mean, how do companies make sure the right people are in the right place at the right time, ready to take on new roles and challenges?
It's like having a secret weapon for the future, I'd say.
Yeah. We'll be looking closely at a recent article from Business Reboot. It's called Succession Planning, Preparing for the Future with a Simple Matrix.
And that was published?
Just this week, on February 13th, 2025.
So fresh.
The really interesting part is how these insights can help anyone boost their career, even if they're not in a management position yet.
That's right. It's all about understanding the bigger picture.
Now, we tend to think of succession planning as something for the top executives to worry about, but
It's really not just about replacing the CEO.
no, not at all.
It's about ensuring that the entire organization can function smoothly and continue to grow, no matter who moves on or steps up.
So it's about having a pipeline of qualified individuals ready to fill those roles as they emerge.
Absolutely.
The article really emphasizes this tool called a succession planning matrix.
Ah, yes.
So what exactly is that? I mean, for folks who are hearing about this for the first time.
Well, it's like a visual snapshot of a company's talent pool. It's basically a graph, and it plots employees based on two key factors: their potential, which means their capacity to grow and take on more responsibility, and their readiness, meaning their current qualifications for different roles.
So it's not just about who's doing well right now, but who has the potential to step up in the future,
That's exactly right.
which is crucial, I mean, to think ahead.
Companies really need to anticipate those future needs and ensure that they've got people ready to take the reins when necessary.
It's like having a bench of talented players ready to come into the game.
I like that analogy.
And the succession planning matrix, you said it has those two axes, potential and qualification.
Right?
Could you break those down a bit further for us?
Sure. So potential is all about an employee's capacity to learn new skills, their ability to adapt to change, and essentially how much room they have to grow within the organization.
So someone with high potential, they might not be a rock star right now, but they're showing those signs that they could be with the right guidance and opportunity.
Exactly. Now, readiness or qualification is about evaluating their current skills, experience, how well they align with the requirements of different roles.
So you could have someone who's highly qualified for their current role, but they might not have that potential to move into a leadership position.
Precisely. You're looking at two different dimensions of their capabilities.
I'm getting it, like a multifaceted view of the employee.
Exactly. And when you combine those two axes, it creates four distinct quadrants within the matrix, each quadrant representing a different type of employee based on where they fall on those scales of potential and readiness.
Okay, that's really interesting. So tell me more about those four groups and how a company might approach each one differently.
All right, well, let's start with the first quadrant: low potential, low qualification. These employees might need more time, more training, or development to increase their skills and overall potential within the organization.
Right, so this is a group that might be easily overlooked, but with the right investments, some of those employees could become really valuable.
Absolutely. It's all about finding those hidden gems and nurturing their development. Then we have the low potential, high qualification quadrant. These are the reliable employees who consistently deliver in their current roles.
The steady players, right, vital for any team.
Yeah. Their expertise and experience are incredibly valuable. Now, moving on to the third quadrant, things get really interesting. High potential, low qualification. These are your rising stars.
So these are the folks with the drive, the ability to really move up, but maybe they just haven't had all the experiences or the training they need yet.
Exactly. They have the raw talent, but they need specific skills and experience to reach their full potential.
And that's where the company comes in, providing those opportunities for growth.
You got it. Companies can create personalized development plans for these employees. Things like mentorship programs, targeted training, and opportunities to stretch their abilities.
So it's not enough to just identify the potential. You got to actively nurture it.
That's the key. And finally, the last quadrant is high potential, high qualification. This is where you find your superstars employees who are ready for bigger roles and responsibilities right now.
The future leaders of the company.
Exactly. They have the experience, the skills, the drive to lead, and they're already performing at a high level.
So companies need to keep those folks engaged and give them opportunities that keep them growing.
Absolutely.
Now, the article uses a hypothetical employee, Jane Doe, a marketing specialist with high potential but low qualification, as an example.
Yeah, Jane Doe.
And what strikes me is that this matrix isn't just about sorting people, it's about taking action.
You're right, it's not just a labeling exercise.
It's about creating those personalized development plans, tailored to each employee's individual needs and aspirations.
Imagine a tool that helps your boss see your strengths, A&D, where you could grow, that's valuable for everyone involved, right?
Absolutely. So, how does a company translate this matrix into concrete actions for someone like Jane Doe? What would her development plan look like?
Well, in Jane's case, it might involve, say, mentorship with a senior marketing manager, or maybe enrolling her in a digital marketing certification program.
Giving her the tools and the guidance to really bridge that gap between her potential and her current readiness.
Exactly. It's about creating a clear path for growth.
But it's not just the company dictating, okay, this is what you need to do. It's got to be a two-way conversation, right?
Absolutely. It's about open communication about those career goals.
Both the manager and the employee working together.
Yeah, it really fosters that dialogue and collaboration.
This matrix, I mean, it seems like it could be revolutionary for how companies approach talent management, especially when it's integrated with other HR systems like performance reviews.
It has the potential to make the whole process much more strategic, more focused on that long-term growth, and aligning individual aspirations with the needs of the organization.
Now, you mentioned earlier that this is relevant to everyone, not just CEOs and executives.
Right.
So how can someone who isn't in a management role use this information to their advantage?
Even if you're not a manager, understanding how these concepts of potential and readiness are evaluated can be really empowering.
It helps you kind of take the reins of your own career, right?
Exactly. Become more proactive in managing your own growth.
Instead of waiting for opportunities to come your way, you can actively seek out those experiences and development that will help you move towards where you want to be.
You can start thinking about your own, I guess you could call it a personal succession plan.
I love that. So what are some practical steps that someone could take to actually create their own personal succession plan?
Well, the first step is self-awareness.
That's always a tough one.
It is. But you got to take a hard look in the mirror and honestly assess where you stand in terms of those two axes, your potential and your readiness.
Right, and that can be hard to do objectively.
It can be, which is why it's also really valuable to ask for feedback from your manager, from mentors, from peers.
Feedback can be tough to hear sometimes, but
It's crucial because it helps you identify those blind spots, the areas where you might need to improve or develop further.
it's that outside perspective that can be so valuable.
Exactly. And don't just focus on weaknesses either. You have to recognize your strengths too
Yeah.
and leverage those to your advantage.
So once you have a clear picture of where you stand, what's next?
Well, then comes goal setting. Think about where you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years. What kind of role do you ultimately want to have? Don't be afraid to dream big.
That's the fun part, right? Setting those goals and then figuring out how to get there.
Exactly. Once you have those goals in mind, then you can start mapping out a path. And this involves identifying the skills, the experiences, the qualifications that you're going to need to reach those goals.
It sounds like taking ownership of your development is key here.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive.
So what are some concrete steps that someone can take to acquire those necessary skills?
This is where you really get proactive. You volunteer for challenging projects, you seek out mentors in your field, you pursue additional training or certifications.
You look for those opportunities that might take you outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
Exactly. Those are the experiences that are really going to help you stretch and grow.
And networking is crucial too, right?
Huh.
Building those relationships with people who can offer guidance and support.
Oh, absolutely. Don't underestimate the power of informational interviews. Talking to people who are already in the roles that you aspire to can give you such invaluable insights and advice.
It's like getting a sneak peek behind the curtain, seeing what it really takes to be successful in that role.
Yeah, it can be really eye-opening.
Now, you mentioned mentors, but how does someone find a mentor? Especially if they're earlier in their career and might not have a huge network yet.
That's a great question.
Mm.
I would say start by identifying people within your company or even within your existing network whose careers you really admire.
People you look up to.
Yeah. Reach out to them, express your admiration for their work, and just ask if they'd be open to sharing their insights and experience.
Do you have any tips for approaching someone that you admire for mentorship? It can be intimidating, right?
It can be, but just remember to be clear about your goals, what you hope to gain from that mentorship. Explain why you admire their work and what specific areas you'd like to learn more about.
So be prepared. Have some specific questions in mind.
Exactly. And remember to be respectful of their time. and be prepared to offer something in return, even if it's just your enthusiasm and willingness to learn.
It's a two-way street, even with mentorship.
Right.
We've talked about self-awareness, goals, skills, networking, mentorship.
Yeah.
That's a lot to think about. Do you have any other advice for someone who really wants to leverage this matrix idea to boost their career?
I would say don't be afraid to advocate for yourself.
Ah, yes, that's important.
It is. Once you've identified your goals and the steps you need to take, don't be shy about sharing those with your manager.
Have those conversations. Make your aspirations known.
Exactly. And remember, companies benefit from developing their talent.
It's in their best interest to have that strong pipeline of future leaders.
Right. So by taking ownership of your development and showing initiative, you're really doing the company a favor as well.
It's a win-win situation. But what if your company doesn't use this type of matrix? How can you still apply these concepts?
You can still think about your potential and your readiness and the skills you need to reach your goals.
Right, even without that formal structure.
Exactly. And you
Oh,
can create your own kind of personal matrix, like a visual representation.
that's a good idea, sort of like a personal roadmap.
Yeah, just taking those concepts and applying them to your own situation.
Makes
I have to say, this whole conversation has been so insightful for me. It's made me realize that succession planning isn't just some abstract corporate thing.
It really isn't.
It's a powerful tool for anyone, who really wants to take control of their career and where they're headed.
Yeah, it's about becoming the best version of yourself professionally.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question. If you were to place yourself on this matrix, where do you think you would land right now?
Good question.
And what steps could you take to maybe move into a different quadrant if you wanted to?
It's all about self-awareness, not judgment, right?
Exactly. We all have that potential to grow and evolve. Sometimes all it takes is a little shift in perspective and a willingness to take action.
That's a good point. Thinking back, have you ever had someone on your team that really surprised you with how much they grew?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Do you think, maybe looking back, could the matrix have helped identify their potential even earlier?
Yeah, it's possible. How can we apply this to our own teams going forward?
If you're feeling inspired to learn more about succession planning and how to use this matrix, definitely check out the full article from Business Reboot.
That's a great idea.
We'll include a link in the show notes.
It's packed with practical tips and insights.
And that brings us to the end of our depth dive into succession planning. We hope you found it insightful and, maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Inspiring, that's a good word.
I think so.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive, as always.
Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review if you enjoyed it. And be sure to share it with anyone who's interested in, taking their career to the next level.
Until next time.
Keep learning and keep diving deep.